Hey guys, welcome back to Clownfish TV. This is Kneon. I am here with Geeky Sparkles.
Hello.
And comics are doing great, guys. They're doing so great that Dynamite Entertainment might not be able to make payroll next week because they're owed $1 million by Diamond. $1 million, $1 million.
But it's all fine.
It's just fine, guys. Comics have never been better. They're getting better.
To stop that negativity. That, you know.
Stop being negative. Yeah, when we told you there was going to be a long tail with the Diamond bankruptcy, this is exactly what we were talking about, right? It's going to take months to actually see what the damage is. And the damage is going to come in the form of a lot of publishers not being able to pay their people, a lot of people having to leave the comic book industry or losing their houses or whatever because they can't pay their bills, shops going out of business because maybe they don't have enough stuff to sell. It's not going to be a good situation. I'm just saying it's going to get a whole lot worse before it gets better, if it gets better. Now, on the positive side, yesterday I did see a DC Comics display at a Sheetz in Western Pennsylvania. That was kind of cool.
Yeah, that was. You're like, I have to go back and take a picture. There's actually
comics in convenience stores. Imagine that. That used to be a thing. But that was kind of cool. But yeah, I got to give a hat tip to Vinny who sent this over. We're going to read through this and see what's going on. And then we have an update on Fantagraphics. If you remember correctly, Fantagraphics had their books held hostage by Diamond. They were going to sell all their stuff out the back door. And I actually saw a live stream today. There's a game publisher that said that they're affected by that too, that they're holding a bunch of their games hostage and they're going to sell them to like Ollie's or whatever. And it's like, well, how am I going to compete against myself when Ollie's is going to sell my game for like 10 or 15 bucks and I have to sell it for like 40 or 50 bucks?
It wasn't theirs to sell to begin with.
No, it's not their inventory.
They have never paid for that stuff. It was there on consignment. They're storing it to sell it to take a cut, but they never paid for the merchandise to begin with. Like they didn't buy it initially.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about that because again, this I cannot stress to you how much of a disruption this is going to be. This is coming from Fantagraphics. Fantagraphics has been around for 50 years. I've done work for Fantagraphics. I like Fantagraphics quite a bit. I have a lot of Fantagraphics books on my shelf. I love Fantagraphics. They've been around for 50 years. And you've got the head of, or the co-publisher, Eric Reynolds saying it's DEFCON 2, if not DEFCON 1 right now for the comic book industry. Like that's how bad things are.
Yeah, but you've been making it up. You're just being alarmist. Everything's fine.
I just, anybody who walks away from looking at these headlines, reading these stories, knowing how long these people have been in business and what they're going through, with the attitude that like, well, it's okay because, you know, the Batman books are pretty good now. That's not the business side of things. At this point, like, yeah, the quality of books, that's fantastic. It's not going to matter when the publishers go out of fucking business and they can't publish anything.
Well, and there's more people in the comics industry and more publishers than just Marvel and DC.
Yeah.
They're backed by, other companies.
Major corporations. They're
right.
Fine. Yeah.
That is a part of the industry. The industry is much more vast, and there are a lot of companies that are going to be negatively impacted by the situation.
So let's talk about this. This is bad. I mean, it's not good.
No, it's really not.
And I'm not happy about it. I want to be very clear up front. I'm not gloating. I'm not happy. I'm actually like, holy hell, that happened so much faster than I thought it was going to.
Yeah, I thought it would take longer than that too.
Anyway, before we get into it, please subscribe for more pop culture news, views, and rants. Guys, you'll get a woohoo if you do.
Woohoo!
Go out to news.clownfishtv.com. That's news.clownfishtv.com. We've got more podcasts and news over there. $5 a month. You can help support the channel because God knows YouTube's not going forward. So that would be greatly appreciated. We're going to go back to the Dynamite situation. Now, it's funny. I was looking at the Harley Quinn Elvira cover, and at first I thought she was squirting milk on her face, and I'm like, oh my God, that's disgusting.
Blue
and then
milk.
I remember, blue milk. And I thought that was disgusting. And I'm like, well, wait a second. They did a fart issue. Who the hell knows what they're going to do, you know? But anyway, yeah, Dynamite does a lot of licensed books. They're one of the bigger, I wouldn't really call them small press, but I guess mid-tier publisher. They're just a step below Marvel and DC. They put a lot of content out there. And they're owed $1 million. $1 million.
That's insane.
So this is coming from Bleeding Cool. At the end of May, Dynamite filed paperwork with the U.S. bankruptcy courts regarding the Chapter 11 bankruptcy of Diamond Comic Distributors, now bought by Ad Populum. Dynamite is claiming that payment should have been made for comic books and merchandise delivered should be counted as administrative expenses, with hundreds of pages listing items that had not been paid for. If successful, Dynamite would have received payments as a matter of priority. And the new owner challenged it. Now into July, nothing on this seems to have progressed. And now Dynamite has asked the courts to hurry this along, saying that the bankruptcy rules allows the court to shorten notice periods, that when an act is required or allowed to be done with a specific time by these rules or by notice given, they're under this legalese, or by a court of law, the court can show that, yeah, you basically have to move things up. Hurry it up. The reason being, they point out, Dynamite is currently owed over $1 million for shipments made to the debtor in Ad Populum LLC, a majority of which are administrative expenses. Dynamite, a small company with less than 30 employees, does not have the funds to make payroll next week if it is not promptly paid by the debtor. The debtor has filed a vague objection asserting potential set-offs, but has not communicated any such set-offs to Dynamite. Dynamite is aware of multiple other publishers who remain unpaid for millions of dollars of shipments post-petition. The debtor has had multiple weeks to prepare for a hearing and has not communicated at all with Dynamite regarding the resolution.
Well, that's not surprising.
Wow. So they're going to go to bankruptcy court, I guess, tomorrow. This just broke tonight. So, yeah, they're basically saying, hey, guys, if we don't get paid, we can't make payroll. I mean, that's how bad things are.
And then they're challenging it.
Yes. This new company, I think, okay, so we've got multiple problems going on. As I understand it, old Dynamite sold many books on consignment, and they're supposedly looking at selling those books out the back door to pay off some bills, right? That's the old Dynamite company. The new Dynamite's just like sitting on their hands and not doing shit to get people their money. And a lot of publishers have already severed relationships with them. Who the hell would work with this company, regardless of,
I don't know why you want to buy it to begin with to make another company. Like, why would you even buy it at all? Because this is going to be like, you already have a bad reputation. People are going to sever their business with you. You're now stuck figuring this all out. Why would you buy that? Who in their right mind would?
Because nobody's going to work with you. But the thing is, whatever their plan is, I don't think their plan involves monthly comic books.
No,
I think something else is going on.
No.
Yeah, something else is going on. They don't give a shit. Basically, if you were really interested in making a good overture toward the publishers that Dynamite or that Diamond. See, this is where I'm getting tripped up. We have Dynamite and Diamond. Diamond 1 and Diamond 2 and Dynamite. That Diamond 1 had, if you were going to try to please these people, you'd want to please them because you're going to be doing business with them, right? If you don't give a shit, you're not going to do anything with them again, then you just freaking ghost them. And
that's what I think it is.
Yeah, they don't care. They know what they're going to do with this company, and it's not going to be
why buy this company? You know what I'm saying? It doesn't make sense to me.
I don't know. Yeah, so this was on top of last month they were owed $500,000, so they probably make $500,000 a month, and which is pretty good for comics in this day and age. That's pretty good, but yeah, they're not getting paid. And now we have Fantagraphics coming out again. This is the co-publisher Eric Reynolds saying this is DEFCON 2, if not DEFCON 1 for the comic book industry.
Well, I'm not surprised.
So they had a conversation with him on ICV2. He said, you still consider yourself having a business relationship with Diamond? Well, they're selling our stock and not paying us for it. So that's a business relationship. Is that a business relationship or not? We're not shipping them new books and they're not paying us, but they have inventory they don't own and they're continuing to sell that and they haven't paid us for it, I guess, for 6 or 7 weeks now.
Yeah, that's messed up.
Do you have an estimate of the total amount of inventory that they're holding on to and how much of those undisgorged sales revenues they're holding on to? They're holding retail inventory estimated in the low 7 figures, so over $1 million worth of books. And since they stopped paying us on May 16th, maybe it goes back to the week of May 12th, they owe us about $35,000 according to the sales data, which they are continuing to provide us. So they're still sending them the statements.
So we're still selling your stuff, but we haven't paid for. But we're going to keep selling it and take all the money? Is that basically what they're doing?
Yeah. Legally, that inventory is yours. You haven't given them any rights to do anything with it other than distribute it. Correct. We have a contract with Diamond, It's consignment inventory, the disbursement of which is at our discretion, not theirs. Do you think what's actually going on is part of their business plan, or is it just a byproduct of general shambles? For the first couple of weeks, I thought it might be the latter. So basically, they're like, oh, well, we figured there were going to be some bumps in the road because they're changing hands. And, at this point, it's pretty clear it's the former.
Well, I think it's the former, too, given the fact that there's 128 vendors or something that are caught up in this, and that this I don't know if it's the old or new, whichever one of the diamonds is claiming that they could just take it because they didn't fill out this one form that none of them seem to know about. Like if it was, I mentioned this before, if like several people filled it out, you could argue, well, clearly we mentioned it. They're the only ones that read it through and saw that. But if nobody does it, then I would argue no one knew about it. So where did you notify people that they had to fill this out to get their stuff back?
Yeah. Well, yeah, he said that they figured out, though, because of the NCR thing, they said that they weren't processing NCRs anymore. That was the first major red flag, that they're doing this intentionally. Did you have any reason to expect the new ownership was going to pursue anything like this? We were concerned that they did not have any long-term interest in distributing books or comics.
Right.
That's what it feels like to me, because why does it matter? If, like I said, if you knew you were going to do business with these people, you'd try to make them happy.
Bridge, yeah.
You wouldn't burn the bridge, but they don't need comic book publishers. They don't care about comic book publishers, or at least not these comic book publishers. And Marvel and DC have already jumped ship. So as long as they're paying us, we're giving them the benefit of the doubt moving forward. In regard to the amount owed us by Diamond at the time of the bankruptcy filing in January, that money immediately got tied up in the courts, which is what we told people had happened. They tried to fight with me in the comments. I'm like, when you go into bankruptcy, basically all the money gets tied up and the judge decides how it gets dispersed. And you might just get a fraction of what you're owed, if anything.
Well, what's concerning to me is the fact that they're just blatantly doing this and then no one's stopping it. Like, by the time anybody does something about it, all the money's going to be gone. They're going to siphon it all off, sold it all off, took everything, giving people nothing, and then they walk away. Their probably investors walk away with all this money. It reminds me of what happened to Joanne Fabrics almost.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what this feels like. There's something else going on. There's some other reason why they bought Diamond. I don't know what it is exactly, but it's not to sell comic books. Because if they wanted to sell comic books, again, they would keep these people happy. They don't want to sell comic books. So they got $45 million loan from Chase to continue operating through the bankruptcy. Okay, that's Diamond 1. They agreed to a very generous payment plan, and they continued to pay us every week from January to May. And then this new company comes along. Yes, as long as they were doing that and honoring what they told us, we were continuing to sell them books. They acted pretty responsibly up until May 16th, when Ad Populum took over. Everything changed. Have you had any communication with them? To some small degree. We've gotten a couple of replies from them basically telling us their hands are tied. This was from some of the people who have been there prior to the new regime. So look, I've been there too. One company I worked for, I was a marketing manager, and I was basically told we're not allowed to spend money anymore when things were tight. That was right before I got laid off. But the whole company, they basically just put a freeze on spending. So I had all these invoices that needed paid from vendors, and they were going on 90 days. Some of them were like 6 months, and they're asking questions. They're like, why are we not getting paid? And I'm like, I have to send you to accounts payable. I don't know. I can't just like cut a check for you. I don't have that kind of access, right? Everything has to go through the system. And so it could be that they're like, their hands literally are tied and they're just not spending money.
Well, they're sure as hell taking the money.
Yeah, they're taking the money. They said they stopped returning the calls on May 16th. They said, are they contending that this inventory that they're holding on to is Diamond's problem, old Diamond's problem, not their problem? That's what we gather. They're effectively saying,
it doesn't matter if they're taking the money.
Yeah. Like, I mean, look, if their plan is to continue to sell comics and graphic novels and shit after the dust settles, it's not gonna work out for them.
Well, it's not their plan, clearly.
No, clearly not. They said they're effectively saying the money that they owe us since May 16th is part of the bankruptcy management, and it's related to that Chase debt. So they're blaming it on old Diamond, also Chase. I think it's essentially Chase that we're competing with. Yes, so Chase is elbowing itself to the front of the line in front of all the publishers and everyone else to make sure they get theirs first. Yes, this is how bankruptcy works.
Well, so wait, let me get this straight. So they got a loan they already owe these people money.
Yeah.
They got a loan from Chase, so they came in after the fact that they owe these people money, and then they get their money back first. even though the other people were there waiting
Yes.
first.
Because it's Chase. And they're owed
The bank, they said the
shit ton of
bank
money.
never loses. The house never loses. The bank never loses. Yeah.
Yep. You didn't receive a notification of a deadline requirement to file. Nope. Never heard of this until last Thursday.
Oh, is that paperwork they were talking about?
Yeah, the paperwork that nobody seemed to know anything about. Marvel, DC, Viz, and lots of other big publishers are on that list. You'd think their legal departments would have known something about this kind of situation. It'd be one thing if, it'd be one thing if some of the big guys had received special treatment or if there had been most favored nation, but we have a contract with Diamond that should take precedence here, saying unequivocally that this is consignment inventory. Said you're talking to other publishers.
They didn't submit those things either. Like they said, of all those people, nobody turned this paper in.
Nobody turned it in.
So no one knew.
Yeah, are you exchanging notes? So basically all the publishers are talking now. I said it's with publishers across the board, big ones, small ones. It's a little premature to discuss tactics, but we're lawyering up and trying to discuss the best path forward. Likely there's strength in numbers. So what's the best case scenario here? We get paid for everything. We get our books back. More likely this goes to court, and it might be a very long, very expensive process.
It will be. You might lose everything you would have made back just in the legal system.
Yeah. So this is interesting. It said Fantagraphics has been around for a long time through tough times for the business. How does this situation compare? It's definitely the most fucked up situation. We're talking 50 years. They've been in business for 50 years. It's definitely the most fucked up situation. When Capital City went out of business, that was another distributor that went out of business years ago. They paid us everything they owed us, which was unprecedented. We had another distributor go out owing us around $75,000. And after the bankruptcy, we got some nominal payment, but this has just turned bizarre. We're battling Old Diamond, New Diamond, and potentially Chase Bank. It's really perverse, and these are uncharted waters. I mean, this is awful. He says, my concern is for the overall health of the direct market and how it impacts other than how it impacts Fantagraphics. We are, if nothing else, remarkably resilient. I worry about a generation of retailers that started their stores in the 80s or 90s. They're now getting closer to retirement and being nickel and dimed at every turn, losing a point here, a point there. I've been concerned about this stuff for 10 years. It could sound a little bit like crying wolf, but there's a tipping point. It just seems to be inching ever closer to us. We're definitely at DEFCON 2, if not 1.
That's because they're a bigot and they don't understand how comics work. Of course, I'm being sarcastic because this is crap us for pointing out the exact to the audience that there's going to be some idiot that doesn't know what we're talking about. To the audience, we've been calling this stuff for a while now. We get called names, we get told we're full of crap. Here we are.
Oh yeah, and they just shut this down too. In a terse message, this is Diamond shuts down Comic Suite and Poolbox. In a terse message to retailers, Diamond announced that Comic Suite, its point-of-sale system, and previews Poolbox, its consumer advanced ordering tool integrated with Comic Suite, are no longer available. So just pull the plug on that.
Is that how people are getting their numbers, access to their numbers to see if it was being sold?
I think that's part of it. And I think there's a Comic Hub or something that they use too.
Because if that was the case, I don't know. If that was the case, I'd be like, they're shutting it down so you can't see what you're owed. I don't know. But the whole thing just stinks to high heaven. And it's absolute crap. This is the way the system works. And it's wrong. But here we are.
Yeah. They said it appears that the feared disruption of data flow to retailers and from retailers to consumers identified by retailers from coast to coast as potentially one of the most damaging impacts of the bankruptcy is here. Yeah. So it's about the numbers. I don't know what to say. When you've got a guy who's been doing this for 50 years saying this is the most fucked up situation in the history of the direct market, it's bad.
It reminds me of those investment firms that sweep in, buy up these companies, and then, tear them apart. Like what happened to Joann's. But the difference was with Joann Fabrics, I guess, that when they came in, the people that were there didn't know they were going to do this. And then they turn around and did this. That's the difference. But this is just the same kind of idea where they're just going to take everything and it's there. I like that it's mine.
Yeah, I don't think they care. I don't think they're interested in, I think they're interested in pieces of the company. I don't think they're interested in selling comics anymore.
They want to break it up and sell this off to there and that off to that probably. And take everybody's stuff that's not theirs. And
it's probably more about
it's mine now.
It's probably more about the games. Honestly, it's probably more about, basically everything but the comic books. But it's over. I mean, look, you're going to hear a lot of stories in the next couple months, I believe, about smaller publishers going out of business, maybe publishers that have been in business for decades, because at this point, like look at Dark Horse. They got out while they could. They sold to Embracer Group when Embracer was going on a spending spree. They were smart. They sold when they could. They saw the writing on the wall. Everybody else, though, if you're not Marvel and DC or Image, like, I don't know if they're going to be around in 5 years.
But you know what's really crappy about this whole situation, too, is there's no recourse for them other than to wait till it gets done. Like, if you are the bank or whatever, you get bailouts. You always get to the front of the line. You got your ass bailed out several times, all this other stuff. You know, other businesses, other people, you know, too bad for you. There's no safety net for anybody else. But other places like, you know, banks or people that are tied to those with power, get bailouts, get other things to keep them in business, get like, you know, loans or even grants or whatever. And then there should be something like that available to these companies as well. But, you know, to make sure they don't have to go under because of one company's bad actions.
Yeah.
And there isn't. And that's what's really wrong.
All right. So we're going to wrap it up.
Yes.
I'm sure we're going to have a lot more on this situation. It's not looking too good. Please subscribe for more pop culture news, views, and rants. We'll talk later.
Bye.
For more pop culture news, views, and rants, go to news.clownfishtv.com. That's news.clownfishtv.com.